In the dimly lit halls of St. Helena's Asylum, a cold wind whistled mournfully. A solitary police car, its red and blue lights bathing the surrounding in an eerie glow, was parked outside. 2 bodies were discovered earlier that day, both staff, not patients. The cause of death? Brutal stabbings. Detective Ava Russo, a seasoned veteran with a stern face and sharp eyes, stepped inside the grand archaic building. A sense of dread gripped her, almost tangible in the chilly air. Steadying herself with a stern nod, she delved into the labyrinth of decaying wards and sinister corridors, navigating the foreboding environment. As she traversed the chilling halls, interviewing the agitated inmates and tense staff, she pieced together a disturbing narrative. The victims were a nurse named Samantha and a janitor known as Tim. They both shared a complex history with the institution, their loyalty teetering on blind devotion. A few inmates reported seeing Samantha in a heated argument with Dr. Wilkins, the head psychiatrist, earlier in the day. Tim was last seen carrying a suspiciously large bag toward the basement. The bag was found with a blood-soaked knife stashed inside. With each revelation, the eerie asylum seemed to throb with a more ominous pulse. A thorough search of Dr. Wilkins' office revealed a series of unsettling medical experiments on the patients, bordering on inhumane. Suspicion loomed heavily over the doctor. As the asylum descended into darkness, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Nurse Emily, trembling and pale, confessed to witnessing the murders. She described a horrific scene where Samantha confronted Dr. Wilkins about the unethical experiments, leading to a fierce argument. An enraged Wilkins allegedly stabbed Samantha. Panicked by the nurse's shrieking, Tim tried to intervene, but in the chaotic struggle, he too met his end at the end of Wilkins' blade. Detective Ava confronted Dr. Wilkins, but he maintained his innocence. No tangible proof, no concrete evidence pointed directly at him, except for Emily's testimony. The tension grew unbearable as the investigation reached a deadlock, the weight of the unsolved double homicide casting long shadows over the asylum. Just as the detective was about to take Dr. Wilkins into custody, Ava stumbled upon a misplaced patient file she hadn't seen. It belonged to Emily. As Ava flipped through the pages, her heart pounded. Emily suffered from a rare condition called Fregally delusion, a belief that different people are in fact a single person who changes appearance or is in disguise. Was this the final piece of the puzzle? Returning to Emily, Ava questioned her again. When pressed, Emily finally broke down, admitting she'd mistaken her own reflection in the mirrored walls of the corridor for Dr. Wilkins. She had intervened in the argument, grabbed the knife, and in her confused and terrified state, killed Samantha and Tim, believing she was protecting them from the doctor. In the dreadful silence that followed, Emily was led away, tears streaming down her face. The chilling irony of the situation wasn't lost on the detective. The murderer had been in their midst the entire time, veiled by the chilling confusion of the asylum and a mind unable to perceive reality. The asylum stood tall in the bleak night, its secrets now laid bare, forever scarred by the nightmarish events of a murder that it unwillingly hosted. As Emily's confession echoed through the rooms, Ava felt a nagging doubt. Examining the crime scene again, she found a tiny overlooked detail, a unique cufflink lying near Tim's body. On questioning staff, she discovered they belonged to the assistant administrator, David. She also found out that David had a long-standing feud with Samantha and Tim over policy disagreements. Noticing his visible absence during the investigation, Ava decided to confront David. David, however, was a figure of composure, his face a practiced mask of surprise and innocence. He denied owning such a cufflink, stating he'd lost his pair weeks ago, a detail confirmed by several staff members. His alibi, an administrative meeting at the time of the murders, held water, verified by multiple witnesses. Still, Ava's instincts whispered caution. She noticed an almost imperceptible shift in David's gaze, a flicker of something unplaceable when they mentioned the cufflink. She decided to delve deeper. She pored over hours of security footage, grim determination etched on her face. The grainy black and white frame seemed to intensify the feeling of unease that hung over the investigation. Finally, in the wee hours of the morning, Ava spotted a faint figure in the dark corners of the footage. It was David slipping unnoticed from the meeting, his absence apparently unmarked by the other attendees. The timestamp coincided too conveniently with the estimated time of the murders. She traced his path in the footage to a rarely used service corridor, just around the corner from where Samantha and Tim were found. The poor quality of the footage made it impossible to definitively identify him as the murderer. Yet the circumstantial evidence was starting to stack up against him. Ava confronted David again with her findings. His calm veneer cracked slightly, but he denied any involvement with an unsettling calm, challenging them to find any direct proof. With a feeling of frustration and dread, Ava knew she was back to square one. The cloud of uncertainty hung heavy over St. Helena's asylum. The walls seemed to whisper in the silence, secrets hidden in the echoing footfalls of a murderer still potentially walking free. David remained a strong suspect, but without a confession or direct evidence, the unsolved murder continued to cast its ominous shadow on St. Helena's asylum. Despite David's alibi, Ava kept probing. Reviewing staff statements, she found another tidbit. David disliked using the staff rooms, often changing in the basement. The same basement where Tim's blood-soaked knife was found. The ominous specter of guilt seemed to loom closer around David, but Ava's gut told her the puzzle was incomplete. She returned to Dr. Wilkins' office, seeking the missing piece. There she found a document, a medical supply request, unusually heavy on surgical knives, signed by Dr. Wilkins himself. Ava's discovery of the medical supply document led her to dig even further into Dr. Wilkins' past. Records showed a series of similar supply orders, each coinciding with previous patient deaths ruled as suicides. Armed with this damning pattern, Ava consulted a forensics expert. Together they scrutinized the murder weapon. Upon inspection, the knife revealed traces of a unique rare toxin, known to cause temporary paralysis. Ava recognized it from Dr. Wilkins' experiments. Simultaneously, lab reports confirmed Samantha and Tim had the same toxin in their system. The nexus of evidence implicated Dr. Wilkins beyond doubt. The connection was undeniable: the surgical knife, the toxin, and the conveniently deceased whistleblowers. David, though not entirely innocent in his administrative tyranny, was not the murderer. Dr. Wilkins had planted a cufflink to frame David and manipulated Emily into believing she was the killer. Without uttering a confession, the silent strength of evidence spoke volumes, painting the picture of a man whose hands were stained with betrayal and blood. Dr. Wilkins, under the guise of a caring doctor, had been the instigator of the asylum's gruesome tale all along.